Good morning, you guys. It's Friday, so you know what that means. Well, actually, you probably don't know what that means because I haven't been doing these until now. Fly Tying Friday. I know what you're thinking. Andrew, you said you were going to do this months ago. And I would agree. I did say that I was going to do this months ago. But I'm starting now. So here is the first episode. And as would be expected, since basically every single video I've shot thus far has been in a lake, we're going to go over some of my favorite lake patterns. I've gotten a lot of people asking in some of these videos to do some tying tutorials, kind of showing you guys what I'm using and kind of tying up some nymphs and showing you guys some rigging and stuff like that. I won't be going over rigging today. I'm actually I'm going to tie these flies, and actually I'm going to go fish them right away at a lake around here for this video for Monday. But we're going to go over just two right now, because these are the two flies that I need for this specific lake. And honestly, these are the two flies that I fish literally everywhere. Rivers, lakes, just about anywhere. And the midge that I'm going to be tying, Chironomid, is going to be a little bit oversized just so you can see it a little bit better. And then the other one will be just your classic balanced leech, which I talk about all the time, but I haven't even shown you guys how to do it, which is horrendously rude of me. So yeah, let's get started. Let's start off with this leech. Probably will be the more time-consuming one. Where did I put my pins? So for pins, this is a satin pin, and when I zoom in while I'm tying this, you'll see it. This is a satin pin. Basically, it's a pin for sewing that you can get at basically any Walmart on the face of the planet. And where's my stuff? Here we go. So basically what I do with these is I clip these shorter than what they are, because depending on the size of balanced leech that I'm tying, they're either too long or too short. So I like to do this. This is going to be on a size 10 jig hook. So I'm going to probably cut this at maybe like a 1/4 of an inch. Got to have the trusty rising clippers. Cut right through that like butter. And then, so basically, I'm going to zoom in real quick so you guys can kind of see exactly how this is done. Okay. So the jig hooks that I have are a brand that I've actually never heard of. I found them the other day, kind of going through some stuff at the local fly shop, if that's what you would want to call it. And so these are a size 10 jig hook. They're a wide gap competition style hook, so they actually have no barb. The wide gap actually will help a lot with your hookup ratio. And so basically what we do is we'll take one of these hooks out. Okay, and since I've already cut this pin without measuring, just because I'm used to tying these, basically all you'll do is you'll put this pin through the bead. Right, so the bead will be stuck on there like that, as you can see. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to start your thread wrap. And what I like to do is I like to lay a base down first, just to make sure that my pin isn't going anywhere. So I'll wrap back up, and then what I'll do is I'll take this pin, and depending on the size of the fly that you're tying and the materials that you're using and blah blah blah, I typically kind of stick to the same like distance away. I don't know if you guys can quite see that with me with my hand on the light, but it'll be basically like maybe like 3 or 4 millimeters beyond the eye of the hook. And what you're doing actually is you're technically balancing this fly so that when you're tied onto this actual eye of the hook, it'll actually be perfectly perpendicular in the water. So it'll be perpendicular to your line in the water is what I should say. So what I do is I'll lay a thread base down, make sure that I've firmly seated that in place. Oh, sometimes those pins where you cut them can be kind of sharp, so just a forewarning if you're cutting stuff on it. It happens on a lot of these bugs. Maybe lay them down a little bit looser right on top of that until you get something over it, and then you're confident in it. There we go. And then I'll wrap up here, just kind of add a little more thread base, and I kind of think it strengthens it a tiny bit. Sometimes these will have a tendency to like bend on you, which is annoying. But when you're fishing lakes, you shouldn't really be hitting many rocks or anything like that. So once you have your thread base down, this fly really consists of two materials in terms of just like material world. When I'm tying this fly in black, my favorite color combo is like a black and red dubbing like this, and then I'll just typically tie the tail out of a black rabbit. But you can use marabou, you can use all kinds of stuff if you want, but these are just my materials that I like. And me personally, I like to have the tail about 3/4 of the length of the hook, so that way when this fly is undulating in the water and kind of bouncing up and down, you're getting a lot of action in that tail, and it's really looking like a leech or some sort of little bait fish. And that's the thing about balanced leeches, is they actually don't have to be leeches at all. The way I tie these, they're a super suggestive pattern, so they could either be a leech, they could be a minnow, they could be a sculpin, they can be like a damsel, they can be all kinds of different bugs. But basically all you're going to do is you're going to make a dubbing noodle, and you're going to you're going to spin the dubbing noodle in, and all you're going to do is you're going to wrap up the body. Pretty simple pattern aside from that connection point. Just like that. And if you want to, you can add like a big old collar to it or whatever you want. Me personally, I stop right there. That is my balanced leech pattern. That's what I fish everywhere. And you'll just do a whip finish. I just do a finger whip finish. And you're done with that bug. Okay? So that's the first one. That's just your classic black balanced leech. And then the second fly that I fish everywhere is one that you could probably guess. It's just going to be a large midge. And like I said, I'm going to tie this a little bit larger than I usually would, unless I'm going to Pyramid Lake, just because I typically fish these in a size 14 to 16. This is a size 10. But again, you can tie these however you want, however large you want. And this fly is even more simple than the balanced leech, because all it is thread, wire, and bead and hook. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add down a thread base. And when I'm tying them large, I use a thicker denier thread. This is like a 16 odd or something, super dinky. So you kind of got to work a little bit harder to get it to wrap up and to really like get a decent profile. But what I'll do is I'll do like 3 layers back and forth, and I'll take my wire. And this is probably one of my more successful color combos that I have. Not that I have, that there is. It's basically just black and red. But you can tie this again in black and copper. Wine is a big color at Pyramid Lake. You basically tie it however you want. Basically, you'll just wrap back down, and you'll tie in this wire. You typically want to keep it all on the same side, just for the sake of uniform fly tying. I know there's a lot of people that are OCD about their flies. I'm not, because I've found out, and I don't know if other people haven't found this out or if they just don't want to talk about it, that fish are stupid. And there are some smart fish, but a majority of fish, if it looks marginally like what they're eating, they're going to eat it. So basically what you'll do is you want to have nice uniform wraps up with this wire. Just like this. Keep them nice and uniform. And then I'll go ahead and just put a couple wraps in front and behind of that. And then this is called the helicopter. Basically you just spin it until it breaks, and it'll break right where your thread has tied down on that. And then what I'll do sometimes on these, I'll do it now just for the sake of being fancy, is I'll add a little bit of that black and red dub to this pattern right at the collar, just to create a little more contrast of the thorax here. Just like that. Same thing, whip finish, and you're done. And if you didn't notice, I mean, that fly took 1 minute maybe to tie. Super fast. And these flies, I've caught more fish on a midge than any other pattern that I think I've ever tied. So between a good balanced leech and a good midge pattern, it's really hard to go wrong. Let me get this back on me real quick. It's pretty hard to go wrong once you have a couple good patterns like that, especially on lakes. Lakes are so similar across the board. There are scud patterns that you probably have seen, like bright orange, pink. You can tie them in olive and gray and brown. scud are in multitudes of lakes all over the west and east. I'm sure. I've never been out east, so I don't know. But at least all the western lakes that I fish, a scud is also a very successful pattern. It's basically just a freshwater shrimp. Again, these balanced leeches can be tied in olive, and they'll technically become a damsel, but there's also olive leeches that you'll find. So there's damsel patterns that you can recreate through that, calabatus too. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the two biggest flies that I fish everywhere. And more often than not, if you're looking at my rig, I have one of those two flies on or both of those flies on at all times because they've just been so successful for me over the years. But this is kind of a sloppy first fly tying Friday. They'll get better as time goes on, I promise. Maybe not. They may get worse. But leave a like and a comment down below if you enjoy this and if you kind of want to see more. Maybe give me some patterns that you are curious to see and kind of get my opinion on. But yeah, thanks for watching. And stay tuned for this Monday. These flies are about to go in use in the next 10 minutes. Well, the drive's a little farther than that. But yeah, in the next half hour to an hour, these flies will be in the water getting tested. So make sure you stay tuned on Monday to kind of see how they do and see if I'm full of... But yeah, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, guys.